It controls billions of dollars. It dictates economic policy for the entire country. And yes, of course, we are talking about the Fed. But do most people really know what it is or even what it does? John Stossel hit the streets of Times Square to find out.
What's the Fed?
The Fed?
FED, Fed? The federal government?
What's the Fed?
What's the Fed? I don't know.
Stop it. Come on, John Stossel. That's not really what you told those people to say that.
This surprises you?
It does. They don't know what the Fed is.
I make fun of people because they don't know who the vice president is. We hold a picture up. But nobody knew. Maybe two people knew what the Federal Reserve was.
Did you say Federal Reserve?
I started with Fed, then I went on to Federal Reserve. A few people said, oh, yeah, that's those money people. What does it do? Almost nobody knows.
Wow. So what does that tell you? What's the significance of that?
The significance is people know all this detail about the Kardashians. The Fed has increased central planning of our economy by so much. They control $4 trillion. That's what's on their balance sheet. That's, Congress spends $3.6 trillion, which is much too much. At least we voted on that, and people heard about the debate. The Fed, largely in secret, a dozen old white people control trillions of dollars. That should creep us out.
People. It should at the very least interest you. What's going on with them? They're controlling the value of your dollar, and you're not focused on them. Should we do away with them? Do you not like what they're doing? I mean, there's a lot of... And actually, before you even answer that, let's see what Ron Paul had to say about that, and we'll react.
It's central economic planning with monetary policy is doomed to fail. We're witnessing its failure, and we need to wake up and decide we need a different system.
Do we need to wake up and decide we need a different system?
Maybe. I won't go that far because all these smart people say, that they can help ease out the highs and the lows, and we absolutely need the Fed, and it just seems risky to go against all those brains. And yet, central planning has never worked in history. Why would it work for a central bank?
And we're doing brand new things right now that we've never done before. And if you look at all the economic theory of past and everything Milton Friedman has ever said, and anyone who's studied this, it seems like at some point we are going to see out of control inflation as a result of what's going on right now.
So far, it's been very good. When I started reporting, inflation was 12%. It's been held down to around 2-3%, and that's great. But when inflation starts, it happens suddenly. And they are printing all this money.
Right, and no one's ever done what we're doing right now, the new unusual measures, so we have no idea how it's going to turn out. But this idea, how you have folks out there campaigning against the Fed, we do need them for some basic stuff, I would say. I mean, number one, standing behind the currency. You look at something like Bitcoin, which is the extreme example. If you don't like the dollar and you don't like what the Fed is doing and you really don't trust it, you kind of try and go off the grid and go Bitcoin. But Bitcoin,
I bought some, and the price, I'm happy to say, just went up.
But it fluctuates like crazy. I mean, it goes up, it goes down. I think people don't count on it for the long term, so it feels like we'd go back to a system where we were doing barter or something. Because if you can't count on a currency, at least in some situation, no, I'm crazy, I'm wrong, you give me a look like I'm a crazy person.
Because you're saying the existence of the central bank, which is basically printing $4 trillion, means you can count on the currency. You could just say, when the inflation hits, and this is from Zimbabwe, and we're coming out with the $100 billion bill.
I got my 100 trillion. I like my 100 trillion rather than your 100 billion. Are we going to have 100 trillion here in the U.S. sometime soon? We may need it to pay for some of the things that we're doing.
What's the alternative? Competitive banking. Before, like Canada, before they copied us and got their own Fed, they had each bank would issue a currency. And you could say, well, why would I trust that? Well, the banks would have a balance sheet you could look at. They wouldn't print much more money than they could back up. And there was competition. You could spread your risk around. During the Depression, 5,000 banks failed in the United States. No banks failed in Canada. It's not clear that we need a Fed. And it used to be only Ron Paul complained about this. For my show on this, we had trouble finding people who wanted to come on and defend the Fed.
Really?
Goolsbee eventually came on, but most of the usual suspects we called said, no, I don't really want to defend him.
He's a usual suspect. He'll kind of shill for that side in any part, but no, he's a good guy.